Hello, welcome to the Healing Secrets of Food Revealed. Today's topic is epigenetics. Reset your genes now for weight loss, health, and healing. Epigenetics is meta-discovery number 2 in my special 3-part series about meta-discoveries, food, and your health. I'm Deborah Keston, nutrition researcher and host of the Healing Secrets of Food Revealed, and I'm on a mission to give you the science-backed weight loss wisdom you need to eat less and weigh less without dieting. In each episode, I'll translate cutting-edge weight loss research into actions you can take that make a real difference in your weight and well-being. Let's get started. Today, meet meta-discovery number 2, food, nutritional epigenetics, and your health. Today's big picture healing secrets of food is this: the emerging science of epigenetics, specifically nutritional epigenetics, reveals that the food you eat switch genes on or off that can lead either to wellness or illness, not only for you, but also for your children, even unborn generations. Some call this dynamic new science a new paradigm and the medicine of the future. At the same time, it is so profoundly changing our understanding of health and healing. The National Institutes of Health has poured multi-millions of dollars into research on nutritional epigenetics. What is all the brouhaha about? I've already told you that nutritional epigenetics is about how the foods you eat switch genes on or off that can lead either to wellness or illness. But this paradigm-shifting understanding of food, genes, and health does even more, because it provides a crystal ball not only into your potential health, but also into the health of your children, even of unborn generations. Be assured the age of nutritional epigenetics has arrived. In this episode 2 of my 3-part special series, 21st Century Meta-Discoveries, Food, Genes, and Health, I'll be discussing the second of 3 breakthrough findings that are so huge they actually create a revisioning of the power of food to prevent health problems for which you're at risk, and also to turn around and reverse many chronic body-mind conditions, from overweight and obesity to heart disease, diabetes, depression, and more. All 3 meta-discoveries are intimately interconnected, but I'm telling you about each independently so you'll realize the powerful role each plays in health and healing, and what you can eat every day to reset your genes for weight loss, health, and healing. Today, I'm discussing the second of 3 meta-discoveries called epigenetics, which is the study of how your behaviors and environment, especially the food you eat each day, can cause changes that affect the way your genes work, and in turn, wellness or illness. Today's focus, nutritional epigenetics. Here's a simplified version of how epigenetics works. Epi means on top of, while genetics refers to the DNA coded in the 20 to 25,000 genes that are housed in your genome in every cell of your body. What's fascinating is this. Sitting on top, remember epi means on top of, sitting on top of your genome is another genome called epigenome. And while genes in your actual genome don't change, healthful nutrients in the food you eat may switch off the expression of ailments some genes are coded for, or conversely, health-harming chemicals and additives in, say, ultra-processed food and fast food that you consume may interact with your genome and epigenome and enable disease coded in your genes to express itself. What I'm saying is this: A revolution is taking place in biology. For decades, scientists believed DNA determined health destiny for both ourselves and what we pass on to our children. But the newly emerging science of nutritional epigenetics is rewriting the rules of heredity and health. Why? Because it tells us that while you might be born with a genetic predisposition to a particular ailment, say obesity or diabetes, the tendency comes not from genes you inherited from parents. It may also be due to your parents' diet, even your grandparents' diet. In other words, research on epigenetics tells us that the food choices we make every day, as well as other aspects of our lifestyle and environment, have the power to override the health tendency coded in your genes. This means that your daily diet may have a powerful impact on your health and the health status of the genes you pass on to your children. With this in mind, the promise of epigenetics is pregnant with promise. Why? Because it has the potential to change medicine as it is practiced tomorrow and to provide a new nutrition health paradigm for the 21st century. But you don't have to wait to see. You can start practicing nutritional epigenetics today, and if you do, both you and your children and potential children could start reaping its health rewards now. I want to tell you the story, the amazing story, of the scientist who discovered the link between the food you eat and the influence not only on your genes and health, but also on the genes that influence the health of your children. And then I'll share a few fascinating studies about nutritional epigenetics and weight and how it may protect you against some cancers and more. The story of nutritional epigenetics starts 6,000 years ago when the first settlers arrived in a remote area of northern Sweden, now called Överkalix, located in the far north regions of the Swedish Lapland near the Arctic Circle. Överkalix is surrounded by dramatic mountains, lush forests, thousands of lakes, and even today, virgin wilderness. Plus, it has two vigorous national rivers running through this idyllic town. For centuries, the farmers of Överkalix complemented their access to fish with crops such as potatoes and grains, and farm animals such as pigs, which provide ham, bacon, pork chops, and sausage. With its geographic isolation, Överkalix might have remained unknown had a particularly unique aspect of the tiny town not caught the attention of Lars Olav Bigren of the University of Umeå, a Swedish epidemiologist. His interest is studying causes of disease in different populations, ranging from whole nations and cities to towns and small parishes like Överkalix. In the 1990s, Dr. Bigren developed a special interest in Överkalix because of its unique remoteness, combined with its sparse population. In particular, though, his fascination was in its century-old registry, filled with well-kept details of births and deaths and harvest records. What he wanted to tease out from the data in the meticulous registry was whether the nutritional environment, in this case, the effects of famine and food scarcity, experienced by a generation of locals around the turn of the 20th century, could affect their health. It seemed like a simple enough study relate food availability to health. But while scanning the well-kept registry for clues, he stumbled on something curious that changed his focus. It appeared that a famine affected the health of grandchildren, born 2 generations after their grandparents had suffered a food shortage, even though the grandchildren themselves hadn't experienced food scarcity. And the impact was so far-reaching, it seemed to be linked not only to an increased risk of diabetes, heart disease, and cancer in the grandchildren, but also a much shortened lifespan. How could this be possible? To explore the seeming phenomenon, Bigrin turned to the extensive database at the university library. Had anyone else ever observed and written about what seemed impossible, that the food supply available to a generation of grandparents could leapfrog over the parent generation and affect the health of the grandchildren? After many hours, Bigrin found a singular possibility in the work of clinical geneticist Marcus Pembry, who had published a theory paper on the topic in an obscure medical journal. In his article, Pembry speculated about if and why genes might carry a, quote, memory from one generation to the next. And he wondered if some kind of imprinting in a generation of grandchildren could be linked to diet and other environmental influences experienced by their parents or earlier ancestors. And if so, might such imprinting lead to unexplained health problems in grandchildren? If this proved to be so, it would be the first evidence that the genetic effects of a person's diet, their nutritional environment, could be passed down and inherited by grandchildren. Okay, let's cut to the chase. Bigrin and Pembry wanted to know if science could provide an actual explanation for their seemingly incredible speculation that health effects due to the diet consumed by parents could be passed on to their grandchildren. What they found was unexpected and surprising. The archives in Over-Calyx revealed that the grandsons, whose grandfathers had an abundance of food, lived 31 years less than grandsons of grandfathers who had poor food availability. And not only did death certificates reveal their lifespan was significantly shorter, they died early from heart disease and diabetes. And a similar shortened lifespan and tendency toward disease occurred with the granddaughters whose grandmothers had abundant food availability. Clearly, the food supply of the grandfathers affected the grandsons only, while the food supply of grandmothers affected the lifespan of granddaughters only. The, quote, inheritance puzzle gets even more confusing when we consider that genes pass on certain fixed traits or health conditions, but genes don't pass on health problems that manifest from the food we eat, or do they? Reflecting on the diet transgenerational dynamic that was unraveling in Over-Calyx, Pembry said, quote, up to now, geneticists thought inheritance is just in the genes, the DNA sequence. Such thinking was understandable. After all, for decades, the cornerstone on which conventional genetics rests is that genetic inheritance is fixed and unchanging from the moment we're conceived. But by the 1990s, Pembry and Bigrin speculated there was a missing piece to the puzzle, and they were determined to find it. Enter Professor Wolf Reich, a developmental geneticist at the Babraham Institute in Cambridge, England. Reich's interest was genetic imprinting, the term that describes the mechanism that turns off the influence of a gene that's inherited from either the mother or father. What he wanted to know at this point in his career is what could cause certain genes to switch on or off and in turn potentially influence the health of offspring. The concept of genetic imprinting, the way in which genes express or reset themselves, based on the interaction between genotype and the environment, was also of special interest to Pembry in a search for the mechanism behind the over-calyx phenomenon, because genetic imprinting not only can originate from either your mother's or father's genes, genes can also be influenced by environmental factors such as diet and possible interactions between the two. This was groundbreaking. We never heard of any such concept. Reich's pioneering first study on genetic imprinting revealed that environment itself, outside of the fetus, can turn a gene on or off, but his findings go even further, for they demonstrated a link between environment, such as diet, and throwing gene switches on and off in such a way it can lead to abnormal gene expression, a kind of faulty switch that increases odds of health problems in offspring. But the question still remained, is it possible that the life experiences, such as diet, stress, air quality, and other environmental factors of one generation, can it be transferred to future generations? To give you some perspective, in the first few years of the 21st century, when both Pembry and Reich were making their discoveries, conventional genetics and its DNA is destiny dogma still reigned supreme. The scientific community thought it impossible that the mechanism that switched genes on and off could be inherited. Still, although it was verging on blasphemy, Reich wanted to know if this was possible. To find out, he would conduct another experiment. This time, he would take some mice whose gene switches had already been altered and then breed them. When the visionary researcher looked at the gene profile of the offspring of the mice, epigenetics, as we know it today, was born. He discovered that the genetic switch in one generation was clearly present in the second generation. Says Reich, quote, "Nobody had seen this kind of thing before." And because Reich's study was the first to show epigenetic genes, the genes that sit on top of your genome, in addition to genes, were passed from generation to generation, classic geneticists working on the billion-dollar Human Genome Project at the same time were having a hard time believing that Reich's data was accurate. But they were wrong, and Reich was right. Epigenetic genes that can switch genes on and off and that are influenced by environment can be passed from generation to generation. What's also amazing about the influence of environment on genes and epigenes and in turn health is this. Since Reich's discovery, rapid progress in the field of epigenetics has given us insights into its power to launch your genes on a path that leads to illness, or conversely to activate, in quote, health genes, often instantly, that can promote a longer, healthier life for both you and your offspring. Perhaps the best demonstration of how this new science of nutritional epigenetics is rewriting the rules of diet, heredity, and disease is a landmark study published in 2003 by Robert Waterland, a postdoctoral student at the time, and Randy Jirtle, a professor of radiation oncology at Duke University. Waterland and Jirtle were especially interested in epigenetics and the way in which it might influence phenotype and gene expression. Given their interest, they focused their attention on a particular strain of mice that carry what's called the agouti gene, because not only does the mutant gene cause agouti mice to inherit a yellow coat, it makes them obese, ravenous, and prone to cardiovascular disease, cancer, and diabetes, and in turn shorten their lifespan. Given the extreme physical and health manifestations that agouti mice inherit, the question Waterland and Girdle wanted to explore this. Would a mild modification in the diet of agouti mothers affect the genetic legacy of a yellow coat and susceptibility to disease that they passed on to their children? If so, it would mean that a subtle nutritional change in the pregnant mom's diet can have an epigenetic influence on her offspring that was so dramatic it might lead to normal weight, a normal mousy brown coat, a disease-free life, and even a normal, longer lifespan. To proceed, Waterland and Girdle designed their deceptively simple but groundbreaking study. Just prior to the mother mice becoming pregnant, the scientists supplemented the mother's already adequate diet with a group of 4 vitamins that are called methyl donors. This includes the B vitamin folic acid, B12, choline, and betaine. That's it. They chose these methyl-rich supplements because many prior studies had linked this particular methyl chemical group with the power to launch epigenetic changes that switch genes either on or off. With the chemical switch made possible by the methyl group consumed by the mother mice silence the harmful and lethal effects of the agouti gene in their children. Remarkably, the offspring in Girdle and Waterland study suggests this is exactly what happened. Unlike the yellow, obese, sickly parent mice that were given the methyl donors, most of their offspring had the normal brown coat of mice. They were slender, they were not prone to heart disease, cancer, and diabetes, and they had a normal, longer lifespan. Bottom line, without changing the DNA of the mice, the methyl donors, meaning the 4 vitamins that had attached to the agouti gene in pregnant agouti mothers, suppressed its devastating health effects in the offspring. And the profound transformation was due to a simple change in the mom's diet just prior to conception. This astonishing study on agouti mice introduced the world to nutritional epigenetics and its profound healing possibilities. But the questions still remain: can diet gene science be applied to human beings? Can it help the millions of us who struggle with weight concerns or heart disease or diabetes or cancer and other chronic conditions that have become common to so many Americans? The answer is yes. Scores of studies that have been done on human beings over the last few decades that support the healing power of the food-gene health connection have been done. One such study I'd like to tell you about is the landmark Shanghai Breast Cancer Study, a major research project that illuminates the benefits of 1, genetic testing so you can know of the genes you may have that could challenge health. 2, and it also sheds light on the role of nutrition in lowering the odds of breast cancer. I especially like the Shanghai Breast Cancer Study because it looks at naturally occurring nourishment in real-life food, not supplements. It was conducted by a team of geneticists, cell biologists, and epidemiologists from China and the United States beginning in 1996. And the question the researchers want to answer is this: is there a relationship between the consumption of a particular group of vegetables called cruciferous vegetables and a risky gene linked with breast cancer called GSTP1-valval? Part of the mustard family, cruciferous vegetables include foods we're all familiar with: broccoli, radish, turnip, and arugula, and greens such as collard and kale and mustard, and China's bok choy. To find out more, the researchers created the largest and most comprehensive study of its kind, called a population epidemiological case control study. The 3-year project included women between the ages of 20 and 70 years of age living in Shanghai, China. One group of 3,035 women already had diagnosed breast cancer, while the second group of 3,037 women randomly selected were cancer-free. At the start of the study, all women were given an extensive in-person interview about their medical, family, and lifestyle histories. The 2 key results of the study are exceptional and groundbreaking because they provide insight, hope, and proactive dietary possibilities for the much feared diagnosis of breast cancer. The first finding is that the scientists identified one of the genes that put women at risk for breast cancer, called GSTP1 VALVAL genotype variation. It is one of the 3 variations in the GSTP1 genotype. The second key finding is that women with the VALVAL genotype who also have a low intake of cruciferous vegetables have a 1.7-fold increased risk for breast cancer. Women with the same genotype who consume a diet high in cruciferous vegetables lower their odds of breast cancer because nutrients in these particular vegetables seem to lessen the potential cancer-causing effects of the VALVAL genotype. Ultimately, the takeaway message from the Shanghai breast cancer study is this: if you have the GSTP1 VALVAL allele, which is the genetic variation that makes you vulnerable to breast cancer, certain phytonutrients in cruciferous vegetables can compensate for the breast cancer gene you inherited and in turn lower your risk for breast cancer. Here's the takeaway about epigenetics and what we now know about the power of nutrients in food to reset your genes now for health and healing. First, groundbreaking research in this 21st century has created a clear connection between diet and its ability to silence or switch off the harmful effects coded in genes. Such findings raise the possibility that diet can redirect genetically inherited DNA tendencies coded in your genes, so much so that health may manifest instead of illness. Second, seemingly small changes in the foods we choose every day can activate an epigenetic change in both you and in a developing fetus that is so powerful it can alter its health and extend its lifespan. Here's the bottom line: fulfilling the gene health promise made earlier in the 21st century will require considerable commitment and resources from researchers and organizations worldwide before its full potential can be realized. In the meantime, there's a lot you can do to benefit from the wisdom derived from the epigenetics research and the Human Genome Project. For instance, consider delivering your own personal genetic profile. I don't mean delivering. Consider discovering your own personal genetic profile. There are organizations that offer this, and then make modifications in your everyday food choices that have the power to switch off genes that put you at risk for the condition. The end result, you increase odds of preventing, even reversing a chronic condition. So you can reap the rewards of what you discover in each episode of The Healing Secrets of Food Revealed. I close each episode with an in-action idea for you to try. This may be a quick tip about how to implement the healing secret of food we just discussed, or a practical step you can take, such as ordering a size down of your favorite coffee concoction, Or perhaps I'll suggest a self-insight exercise, an internal reflection that can lead you closer to achieving your food-related health goals. I'll offer an inaction exercise at the end of each episode that can contribute to your transformation from today's new normal way of eating, which leads to overeating and overweight, to whole person integrative eating, which I describe as your scientifically sound personal guide to eating less and weighing less without dieting. Consider keeping a Healing Secrets of Food Revealed journal to write about your experience with each inaction exercise. Here's today's inaction self-insight reflection. Please read this short excerpt from today's podcast about the health-enhancing power between food and epigenetics. Quote, "The study about the agouti mice created a clear connection between diet and its ability to silence the harmful effects coded in genes, so much so that health may manifest instead of illness," end quote. Consider what the epigenetic meta-discovery about food epigenetics and health means to you personally. For instance, if you're prone to a certain illness that has been typical for your parents, perhaps, or other family members, do you think certain modifications to your most of the time way of eating may be beneficial to your health? If yes, how so? If you would like a summary of today's inaction exercise, please visit healingsecretspodcast.com. Then look for the yellow light bulb next to the inaction CTA. At healingsecretspodcast.com, you can also listen to this episode again, read the transcript, and please consider joining the Healing Secrets podcast community, where I'm looking forward to meeting you. In the next episode of the Healing Secrets of Food Revealed, which is episode 3 of this 3-part series on meta-discoveries, food, and your health, I'll tell you about another 21st century discovery that broadens your vision of nutritional health and that empowers you to take charge of your health so you can reclaim your health destiny for wellness, not illness. I want to thank you for joining me today on the Healing Secrets of Food Revealed. With each show, I'll share step-by-step, science-backed insights you need to nourish all of you, body, mind, soul, and social well-being, each time you eat, so you can thrive. I'm Deborah Keston, host of the Healing Secrets of Food. Until next week, be nourished.